So we've been married 31 years, right?
We have.
And has it always been happy and...
That's a trick question.
It's a trick question. So the first 10 years of our life, we were way off track.
Yes.
We talked about earlier about what I remember about our wedding day, and I was clueless. That's the one thing I remember. I was clueless. I really didn't know much about marriage, just to be honest. I was a young kid.
19 years old.
19 years old.
Yes.
But anyway, we had a pretty tough first 10 years of marriage because it was all about me. And it was all about whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
And there was no all about us.
Yeah.
And it for sure had nothing to do with God. And add drugs and
alcohol
and all that other stuff in the middle of that. And that's a recipe for disaster. Right? So anyway, the first 10 years were pretty tough. And not always.
Right.
We had some good times in there.
We had two girls in the middle of that, two beautiful girls.
Yeah.
And, in the middle of all of that, God still blessed us. And our girls are what brought us to the Lord. So God is so strategic. Yeah.
I think there was 2 times that I can remember that I actually talked to lawyers about getting a divorce. One early on in our marriage, probably a few years in, or maybe 5 years in, or something like that. And then another one right at 10 years, and that I actually was considering getting a divorce because it was like
it was crazy.
It was a war zone. We'd done horrible things to each other, and it's like. I couldn't really find any love for you then, and there was just nothing in me that had it. There was just unforgiveness, and I think my breaking point, Deborah and I were a mess, and we had this unforgiveness with one another, and so I really didn't see a future with us. That was kind of buried at the time, and but I had these 2 girls, and Sammy and Tabby, and man, I felt a responsibility that I was supposed to raise them, and I was so far off track that I knew if something didn't happen to me, that I wasn't going to be able to raise them because I was a mess. I was raised in church. I realized, man, I got to go find some help, and so I found myself at church, and eventually I surrendered my life to the Lord, and He changed me. And He put that forgiveness that I needed for my wife in me. And things began to change. But before I even met the Lord, I remember at work one day, it was one of those times when I was contemplating getting a divorce. And I remember you can go to different people and talk about things, and you can go to people, like if you're wanting an answer, they'll back you up, so you know who to go to get the answer you're wanting.
Yeah.
So I was kind of doing that in a sense. Guys around work, you can go to people and they're going to back you up. Oh yeah, I would go for it. You don't need to be treated like that.
Yeah, she's crazy.
Yeah, she's crazy. You need to go get a divorce. So anyway, this tire salesman walked into my work one day. And so I'm talking with him, and I told him what I was contemplating, that, hey, I think I'm going to get a divorce. I think I'm going to get a lawyer and divorce my wife. And I said, I don't have love for her anymore, and I don't feel that feeling anymore that I had. And I'll never forget, it changed the trajectory of my whole life. And he said, this was before I knew Christ. He said, love is not a feeling, it's a commitment. And man, that resonated in me, and I thought, it's a commitment. And then he told me, he said, whatever you do, fight for your marriage. And man, oh man, those words just it was a big deal.
And I had been serving the Lord for almost a year at that point. And I thought, my husband was still a dealer at that time, and I was a Christian, and it was like heaven and hell in the same home. And I remember thinking, I've done all I can do. I can't keep living like this. And so I was okay with the divorce. We were both okay with it. And he called me on an afternoon after he had spoken with this tire salesman, and he said, listen, I just want you to know this is what I know. Love is not a feeling. Love is a commitment. And we need to fight for our marriage. And it ticked me off because I had already set my not hopes but my determination on just ending something that was so difficult to work through.
So things were even though that was spoken to me and it did it began to change my thinking, but still we were
fire and gasoline,
something like that. Yeah. Fire and gasoline. So we were still toxic for one another.
Yeah.
I still had that unforgiveness, and I had no idea what to do with that. And so my life was running out of control. And so long story short, I surrendered my life to Christ.
Yes.
And He changed me. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I'd struggled with for a while was forgiveness. When I received Christ, that's the first and immediate thing that I knew is that He had forgiven me, and that was huge. So the forgiveness thing was a little bit easier for me after that, but still there was this thing between Deborah and I that we just couldn't.
I had
done
get past. So many things to him, and he had done so many things to me that were, by the world standards, unforgivable.
Yeah. But I had this new love, and the new love was Christ, because he was doing this in my heart, and I didn't understand it, and so my attention went to Him.
Yeah.
I just started falling in love with Him.
He spent a lot of time reading the Bible, and I thought, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful to me.
This all seemed like it took forever, but this was all taking place pretty rapidly. Within a few months, I guess. We were separated at the time. I hadn't seen my kids in a while because of my choices and my involvement with drugs and all those things. Yes. And we were separated. I had a house in town. She still had a house out in the country. It was around Thanksgiving time. And she was going to let me see the kids for Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. And so I was so excited. She was bringing the girls to my house. I was trying to make everything just right for my girls and really could care less about Deborah at the time because I had moved past that.
Almost.
And there's a few times in my life, maybe more than a few times, that I really sensed that God touched me. Mm-hmm. And this was one of those times. Debbie had just got there, and we were on the porch. I'll never forget it. And there's the girls, and just all of a sudden it was like, boom, just right on top of both of us. And that hatred and that unforgiveness that I had towards her just disappeared. And all I could see was forgiveness and love.
There was a holy touch from God.
And it happened at the same time.
Yeah.
That was, we've been married for 31 years, but that was the beginning of something really that we had no idea when we were 19 that could really happen in our lives.
Right. There's a song Sarah Grove sings that says, "Better than the promises is the day we got to keep them." I wish the two that got married when we were 19 years old, I wish those two could see us now. They never would believe that there are different kinds of happy. And that's what this has ended up being. There's a different kind of happy. We would have never, ever told our 19-year-old selves, hey, you're going to walk through drug abuse, and you're going to have infidelity to deal with, and you're going to say the worst things possible to each other, and then you're going to love each other again, because we would have ran. We would never have made a holy union together. We would have ran from that. But there are different kinds of happy in the end of this because we put God first. I love God more than I love my husband. He loves God more than he loves me. And that's how we love each other, with a different kind of love.
Yeah.